Hello, everybody. My name is Ángel, and I'm here today to explain what do we do in our economic control department in La Liga, okay? So, first of all, let me tell you one or two things about myself. So, I'm from Spain, from Barcelona. I've been working 9 years in the auditing and consulting industry in PwC. And since the end of 2022, I joined La Liga in the Economic Control Department as a senior financial analyst. So the Economic Control Department is responsible of controlling the financials of the member clubs. It's formed by 6 or 7 financial analysts, and it reports directly to the Chief Executive Officer of La Liga. So as you can imagine, it's a very key department, and now during all the presentation, I'm going to explain to you why, okay? So as you can see here, the presentation is going to be divided in 4 areas. The introduction, where I'm going to explain to you how do we work and the results of this department. Then the second part is going to be the key area of the department, why make us different from the rest of the leagues. Then the third one is the player registration, which is related to the second one. And then the last one, the economic control ex post, okay, which is related to the UEFA regulations. So, first of all, you have to know, guys, that there's a sports law from 1990 in Spain. Actually, it's been updated on December 2022 that gives La Liga the competence of controlling the financials of the clubs. So this is really important. So everything that we do in La Liga has its legal support back, okay? So without this regulation, we couldn't be able to perform all of the tasks that we are doing as of now, okay? So since we had this law in Spain, so La Liga developed some legal bodies in order to apply our economic control, okay? So first of all, we have the statutes, where you can find basically the registration ratios that each club that wants to compete in the professional football in Spain has to comply, and also some sanctions related. Then also you have the general regulations, particularly Book 10, that we will see later on. And the most important, since 2013 and 14, La Liga has developed the standards for the preparation of budgets, okay? So guys, you have to understand that the economic situation of the clubs in Spain back in 2013, it was really, really bad. So there were a bunch of clubs with huge amounts of debt to different clubs, players, public administrations. So the situation was really, really unsustainable, okay? So since the season 2013 and 14, we developed some kind of rules in order to avoid this situation and to improve, okay? So you'll see later how did this performed, okay? So another important thing is that these 3 bodies are updated continuously, okay? So the kind of transactions that the clubs have to face are different. We are in a very dynamic world. So all of these laws and regulations have to be updated continuously, okay? Another very important thing is that they are self-imposed by the clubs. So the shareholders of the clubs understood back in 2013 that the situation couldn't continue like this. Bunch of them were making huge amounts of losses. So they decided that they had to make a turnaround, okay? So there's no like an independent body applying these roles. So these roles are self-imposed by the different clubs, okay? And at the end of the way, so why do we make all of this stuff? So basically to get 2 important points, okay? To get financial sustainability, which is key, and then integrity and transparency, okay? Okay, so here you can see some data, how the situation has developed from 2013 or even before to now, okay? So from 2004 to 13, there were 30 Spanish clubs entering in CBA agreements, okay? So in 2013, the total amount of debt with the public administrations was over 650 millions. And also in 2010, the reported non-payments to players were 89 millions, okay? So since the economic control, or we could say the ex-ante regulations have been applied, so as you can see, the situation has changed totally, okay? We went from 650 millions of debt practically to zero, 3 millions. And then with the debts against players, the same. We went from 89 millions in 2011 until to zero, okay? So at least in this scenario, the results are awesome, right? So we can, some people here could say, okay, so we are controlling the debts and the expenses, right? But probably the revenues are not going up. So we can see that is not the situation, right? So from the season 15-16, so the revenue has increased. You can see here 2 seasons that it didn't happen, but they were really affected by the COVID-19 situation. So the trend is quite positive, okay? And also, if we focus on the investments and disinvestments in players, we can see that the situation in Spain is positive, okay? Here you can see other leagues where the net investment is very, very negative, as England, for example, okay? So if we talk about the net result, the profits that the clubs are making, so the situation is quite similar. You can see that the last seasons are impacted by the COVID-19 situation, which was really, really tough for the clubs because most of the stadiums were closed. But the trend, obviously, and more compared to other leagues, is quite positive. Okay, and then this part of the presentation I really like. Okay, because it talks about the aggregated contributions from shareholders. So let's say that you are a shareholder and you have a club. Okay, you can own a club because of different reasons. Okay, maybe you want to win championships. Maybe you want to make profits, maybe both, but I'm pretty sure that what you don't want is to lose money, okay? So if we compare the contributions that have been made in Spain from the season 16-17 to the 21-22, you can see that it's the league with less amounts, okay? So this means that the clubs in Spain are sustainable, okay? They don't need external capital to work well. And well, if you, for example, compare the situation to England or to Italy, so you can see that the difference is huge, okay? And that's a very good point here, because all the stuff that we are talking about is really beautiful, okay? To make the club sustainable, to be strict on the financials, okay? But some guys here could say, okay, I really like the numbers, but what I want is to compete in the field, right? To win championships. So as we can see here, so a correct management is not opposite to winning on the field, okay? So in the last 10 seasons, if we get all the European competitions that have been played, which add up 32, so we can see that the teams, Spanish teams, are really competing really well, right? So we won out of these 32 competitions a total of 19, and if we compare to other different league results, so the difference is huge. So guys, you can make profits, you can be sustainable, and still winning on the field. It's not opposite, okay? Okay, so now we have talked about the first idea that we said, which was sustainability, okay? And then the other one that was important, and because of that we make all of these regulations and all of these, we develop all of these bodies, is transparency, okay? So let you know that in La Liga, twice per year, we make public the squad cost limits of each club, okay? So basically, to be understood, the squad cost limit is the amount of money that has each club to spend in players. It's very basic, okay? We will go deeper later on how do we calculate this amount, but basically is the room that each club has to spend in players, okay? Don't confuse this with the actual squad cost. So it's different. So, for example, a particular club can have a squad cost limit of 10 and has an actual squad cost of 8. So this particular club will have an excess of 2, okay? Maybe another example is a club that has a squad cost limit of 10 and a squad cost of 10. So this club will be on budget, okay? And probably there's another club that is over the squad cost limit, okay? Probably you don't understand how this can happen, but it can happen, and we have some particular rules over this situation, okay? So as you can see, as you can see here, if you get in the La Liga website, you can see all of this information, okay? It's public for everybody. And here, basically, as a summary, you can have all the regulations that we have and that impact our economic control department, okay? The UEFA Club Licensing and Financial Sustainability Regulations. This is basic for us, basically for our ex-post regulations that we will talk later on, okay? And then, as we said before, the sports law that started in 1990 and now it's been updated in 2022, La Liga Articles of Associations or Statutes, La Liga Regulations, and the one that has been developed since 2013, which is the key of our department, which are the standards for the preparation of budgets of clubs, okay? Here you can see the key milestones that we have in our department, okay? So here you can see summarized basically all the stuff that we do in La Liga regarding economic control, okay? So we have the ex-ante control, which is ruled by the budgeting standards. Then we have the registration period, which is regulated in the Articles of Association. And then finally, the ex-post control, which is regulated in the general regulations, okay? So the most important, or I would say the most significant control, the ex-ante, we have like 2 periods, okay? The first one is April 30. So in April 30, the clubs have to provide to La Liga, first of all, the profit and loss statements of this season. When every time that you see T, means season, okay? Temporada in Spanish, okay? So the clubs have to provide to us the profit and loss statement of the current season, and then the budget, what they expect to get for the next season, for the season that we are going to control when they will compete in La Liga, okay? Then they have to provide to us the balance sheet as well, then an investment statement as well, the actual and the projected, financing statement as well, treasury statements and certificates, okay? And then we will analyze all of this information. We will make some adjustments that we will explain after, and we will report the squad cost limit for every club, and we will make it public, okay? So then, as I was saying, in June 30, because of all of this work, we make public the squad cost limit for each club, okay? Then they have to provide us, to us as well the Annex 6 of the previous season signed. In the Annex 6, what you can find is a detailed listing of every player with the related cost that had for the club, okay? Then the initial Annex 6, so it's exactly the same, but with the beginning cost for the next season, okay? And then they will have to update the variable costs in Manager. Manager is the application that we have where we control all the squad cost situations of the clubs, okay? So this is kind of important, right? Because as the name says itself, variable is something that you cannot know by short, okay? So what we do in our department is we tell the clubs, okay, guys, tell me which amount of variable, with which amount of variable have you closed the previous season? Let's say number 10, okay? So which percentage represents this variable compared to the fixed cost? Let's say a 5%. So we are going to apply the 5% variable for the next season, for all the contracts. This is a kind of estimate, but is the only way that we have in order to calculate an estimate variable for next season, okay? So this is basically the ex-ante regulation. Then we move forward to the registration, okay? So every single club, in order to compete in La Liga, in professional football in Spain, has to comply with some ratios. They are really related in depth, okay? So if they comply with these ratios, they can compete. If they do not comply with them, they are not allowed to compete, okay? So this is a very important measure regarding sustainability, okay? Then the clubs that have been promoted to professional football has to provide to us also the audited financial statements of the previous season, and they have, or they need a clean report. If they don't have a clean report, they cannot compete either in the next season, okay? And also, they don't have to have overdue payables with the public administrations, okay? And finally, in order to compete in La Liga, they have to make a deposit of 3.2 million, okay? This is the value of the participation as of now. And then we move to the final control, which is ex post. Why do we call it ex post? Because it talks about closed information and audited information. As you can see here, this is like trying to predict the future, okay? And now here is trying to analyze what has been closed, okay? So here basically we asked for the audited financial statements of the last season, of the audited annexes, as I mentioned before, the detailed listing of the players of the last season. We also asked for some particular areas, most of them revenues, to be audited, and we also control the debts of the clubs, okay? That they cannot have overdue debts with clubs, players, public administrations, basically the three of them, okay? So here we have like two steps also. The first step that we control in November 30, and then the second step in March 31st. I'll let you know that we are now in a process of kind of modifying this part of this controlling part in order to update it and be more related to the changes that UEFA published, I would say, in the summer of 2023, and we're going to be end soon, but as of now, this is the situation, okay? Okay, so now we focus on the key part of our department and what makes us different compared to the other leagues, okay? The ex-ante control. Why does this make us different? Because we are trying to predict the future, okay? So as you can see in some UEFA situations or maybe in other leagues like Premier League, is that what happens is that some clubs don't comply with the regulation, they compete, maybe they win, and then after 1, 2, or maybe more years, the regulation body says that they have not complied and they put to them sanctions, okay? So this is not fair, okay? Because first of all, these clubs have benefited of not complying the regulations, and they got achievements on the field because of that, right? And then the second option, which is not good, is that maybe you can have some clubs that they don't comply with the regulations, and then when you are trying to control the situation, it's too late, right? They have huge amount of losses, the situation of the club is really, really bad, and maybe the owner goes away, and you have like a traditional club with a very bad economic situation, and it's too late to act over that, okay? So, as we said before, so this is very important in our department, and basically all of the work that we do here is to control the key element of all the clubs, which is the squad cost. Normally, you can focus on, and you can see different clubs. The most important part is the squad cost, right? Because the clubs tend to reduce or be very strict with the structural cost, right? And they tend to spend all the money that they get, or even more, with the squad cost, right? Because this makes them to compete better on the field, or at least they think that, okay? So we are very focused on the squad cost. So why can we perform correctly this job? So basically, because this point here. So we have the competence to not register a player, okay? So let's say in the example that we said before, okay, that there's a club that has a squad cost limit of 10, and the actual squad cost of the club is 8, okay? So we are in the summer window, and then the club comes to La Liga and says, hey guys, I have hired this amazing player which has a real cost of 3, okay? So it's very basic. 8 plus 3, 11. It's over 10, so we are not gonna register the player. So because of we have this competence, we are able to perform all of this job. So this is really important. If you don't have this competence, it's very difficult to implement all of this work. Okay, so here you can see like a comparison between La Liga and the other leagues, okay? So we can say that the only league that has a quite similar control in purpose is the German league, La Bundesliga, okay? They have, for example, a control over capital contributions. So in Germany, the external ownership of the clubs cannot be higher than the 49%, okay? And also, in order to compete, in order the Bundesliga to give the license to the different clubs, they have to comply with some financial criteria, okay? If you talk about the other main leagues, the Premier League, the Serie A in Italy, and the Ligue 1 in France, they just have exposed controls. And as you can see, if you just have exposed controls, you have some problems, and you face huge issues, right? For example, in the UK, you can see that there was a deduction of 10 points to Everton, right? Also, you have seen that in February 2023, there were some disciplinary proceedings against Manchester City. Then in Italy, the debt with the tax authorities is over 800 million. There was the a scandal with the Juventus as well. In France, you know that the PSG has presented huge amount of losses. So the key thing here is if you don't perform ex-ante procedures, you're going to face troubles. As of now, we're facing the Premier League, the Serie A, and the League One, and as we faced in 2012 and 2013. Okay. And well, because of that, we got a lot of good comments about our job, and basically the Spanish government said or concluded like this, right? That the situation before was dramatical, right? And since the economic control has been developed in Spain, so now the football industry is sustainable. There are some clubs that make profits, and it can continue on this way, right? Obviously, the other way was completely chaos. And as I said before, since other leagues or top leagues in Europe are having some issues, so in February 2023, the British government basically published a white paper urging the creation of an independent body to control this situation, right? So the Premier League cannot continue with this level of losses and capital contributions, okay? And just a few days before, the Premier League announced some disciplinary actions against Manchester City. Let you know, guys, that as of now, there's been no significant progress on the situation, but basically the British government is saying that the British competition has some structural financial problems. More than 60 British clubs bankrupt since 1992. There's a lack of self-regulation, and obviously they want to protect the football and the fans and avoid the creation of some new competitions like the Super League that will damage a lot, like, well, the vast majority of the clubs and the industry, okay? And we have been involved, let you know, in the consultations that the British government is taking in order to improve this situation, okay? Okay, so here you can see basically all the information that we ask to the clubs in order to perform our ex-ante control, okay? So it's composed basically by C annex, okay? The first one is the profit and loss statement. We ask the clubs to provide to us the audited one from T-3, which is season -3, season -2, the estimated of season -1. They just have to estimate 2 months, okay? Because as you remember before, we are in April 30, so they just have to estimate May and June. In Spain, the football season goes from 1st of July to the end of June, okay? So since we are in April 30, they have actuals until April 30, and they just have to project 2 months, okay? Then we also ask the same for the investment and the investment statement, also for financial, for the balance sheet, for treasury, and finally, for the squad cost, okay? We ask the clubs to provide to us a detailed listing where it's included every single player and the cost that represents, okay? And basically, all of this job is to make the clubs generate the sufficient resources that they need to spend in the squad that they want, okay? So as we said before, so the clubs provide to us all of this information, we go through it, then obviously we make some adjustments. In an ideal world, the clubs will read the standards of budgeting, they will prepare exactly the budgets in line with these standards, but this doesn't happen, right? So there are some mistakes, so we talk to the clubs, we make some adjustments, okay? And then finally, we get to the budgetary break-even, which means that you get some revenues and you get some expenses, right? And the result has to be zero. You cannot make losses, okay? So in order to not make losses, it is really easy, okay? You have, the calculation is really easy. You have the revenues, you take out the structural expenses, the operating expenses, finance costs, amortization, right? And finally, you get to an amount, to a left amount. This left amount is called the squad cost limit, and is the amount that you're going to be able to spend in players, okay? And here you can see like some examples of the standards of budgeting, okay? So the rules that we say to the clubs that they have to rely on in order to prepare the budgets, okay? For example, revenue from competitions. So we allow the clubs to project the greatest amount that they got in the last 3 seasons, okay? Obviously, if they competed in the same competition, if in the last 3 seasons they competed, for example, in the first division, and now they got relegated to the second division, they cannot project the revenue that they got in the first division, okay? Then, for example, revenue from subscribers and members. We let the club project the same one that they got the year before, okay? Revenue from broadcasting. So this is an amount that we get since we centralized the TV rights, okay? So this amount is provided by La Liga. Then revenue from advertising. So we let the clubs that they have to audit all the actual revenues in order to be included in the budgets, okay? Then non-sport staff cost. So we tell the clubs that they have to project the same amount as last year. Amortization not related to the squad. They have to project at least the 95% of the amount of last year, okay? Then results from transfers, okay? This is a very important area, okay? The amount that the clubs get in the transfer of players' activity, okay? So they can project an average of the last 3 seasons, okay? This amount, though, is limited to the 25% of the revenue amount that the club has projected, or the 10% in the second division, okay? And here, guys, you can see how the TV rights, the revenue of the TV rights are distributed in La Liga, okay? So we have like, we could say a whole population, okay, that we got, and then the 90% goes to the first division, and the 10% goes to the second division, okay? So let's focus on the first division. 50% is split equally to all the clubs, okay? Then the other 25%, it depends on the sporting results of the clubs. So obviously, the club that finished first the last season is going to get more money than the one that finished in the position 15, okay? And then the last 25% is related to social implementation, okay? 1/3 is referring to the ticket sales, and then two-thirds are related to TV audiences, okay? Now, since this season, the 23-24, we have split this last part in 50% related to TV audiences, and then another 50% related to an attention point system, okay? There are some measures that the clubs have to perform in order to increase the TV audiences. So if they perform more of these actions, they get more points, and they can get more money, okay? And then if we go to the second division, the 70% of the 10% is split the same for all the clubs. The 15% relates to sporting results, and then the last 15% is related to social implementation. So really important. Every club has the warranty that they are not going to receive less than the amounts that they got in the season 14 and 15. No club will receive less than 3.5 times the amount that has the top one. And there are some solidarity mechanisms that take out some amount from the total, okay? There are some obligations, for example, the compensation fund. This is key important, okay? So in La Liga, we have like a compensation fund that is provided to the clubs that are relegated, okay? So this part of the revenue, the TV rights, I would say for the vast majority of the teams are critical, okay? It's very, very important. So as you can see, it's not the same competing in the first division than in the second division. So when you got relegated, you suffer a huge decrease in your revenue, okay? So because of that, there's a compensation fund that La Liga provides to the clubs when they are relegated in order to be able to compete and to adjust their financials, okay? So this amount is taken out from these TV rights, okay? And well, here we can see the same, for example, with the investment statement, okay? So for example, let's say that you have been promoted from the second to the first division. So we make you project in your investment statement 3 times the amount that you invested last year. And if it happens the same but opposite, if you got relegated, so we're going to make you project 1/3 of the investments of last year, okay? Let's say that you are on the same division, so we are going to make you project at least the 80% of the investments average from the last 3 seasons, okay? There are no specific standards on the financial budget, and then on the treasury budget, so we are going to make you put at least the 30% of the as payments of the investments that you have projected in the investment budget, and then a maximum of 30% of collections that you have projected in the disinvestment budget, okay? And basically what we see here is that we check out a period of 18 months, and there cannot be any single month where you need extra cash. So you have to be sustainable each month, and you need cash capacity during all the months, okay? And here, basically, you can see like a summary how we calculate the squad cost limit, okay? We start from the losses from the previous season, okay? Let's say that you closed last season with losses, okay? So what we are going to make you is recover these losses in the next year, okay? So you cannot make losses continuously, okay? So first of all, in the equation, we put you the losses that you got last year. If you made profits or you made break even, no problem, okay? Then we calculate the budget that you are projecting for the next season, for the season that you want to compete, okay? We are in April 30, so we are talking about the profit or loss that you're going to make next season from 1st of July until the end of June, okay? What we are going to consider, the budget income, then all the budget expenses without the squad cost, and also the financial result, okay? So this is going to give us a number, hopefully positive number, okay? And what we are going to do as well is limit the depreciation of fixed assets to the 4% of the net revenue. Let's say that you have invested in a new stadium and new training facilities, and you have huge amortization costs. Since these are investments, we are going to limit this expense until the 4% of the net revenue, which means that if you have higher expenses, we are not going to take them into account in this season. You'll have to recover them in future seasons, okay? And then in Spain, because of Plan Impulso, we are having some construction processes in a bunch of stadiums, which means that during you are making this construction process, you are not taking some revenue from the stadiums because some parts of the stadiums are paralyzed, okay? So what we are saying is, okay, guys, we are not gonna impact you negatively during this situation. We're gonna consider you this revenue as the stadium was 100% operative, okay? And you'll have to recover these impacts in future seasons, okay? So aside from that, once we have a final number, we are going to take out two things, okay? First of all, during the COVID-19 situation, as I said before, the clubs were facing very difficult situations. They got huge losses, okay? And during this situation, they told us not to impact the squad cost limit because otherwise the market transfer would have been closed, okay? So we told them, okay, we're not going to consider you these losses in the seasons impacted by the COVID-19 in 1920 and 2021, but you're going to have to recover these losses in the future, okay? So now, in the amount that we got before, we are going to take out also these losses. And we are going to take out another amount as well, which is related to CVC. So I don't know, guys, if you know, but La Liga entered in a finance agreement with CVC that made a huge investment in our organization and the clubs in order to achieve some improvement of the business, right? So all of these finance were divided in 3 steps, okay? The 70% of the amounts had to be invested in infrastructure, okay, or the development of the club. Then the 15% on financing. Let's say that the clubs were having some debts, they could use this money to restructure these debts, and then another 15% in capacity to invest in players. So this extra capacity that the clubs got because of CVC, they now have to recover that starting in the season for 24-25, okay? So once we have made all of these adjustments, we get a money, okay? So, or an amount, better said. So this amount will be the squad cost limit. The money, as we said before, that the clubs are going to be able to spend in squad cost, okay? Let you know, guys, just that in the second division, you can have a very little amount or even negative. So at least you're going to have a squad cost limit of the 30% of your net revenues, okay? So the amount that we have calculated is going to be spent in 2 kinds of players, like the squad cost registrable, which are basically the professional players, the 23 players and the coaches, okay? And then also you'll have to consider the non-registrable. The non-registrable are players that are in the low categories of the club, that are young, but that they play with the first team, okay? So you have to split this amount between these 2 concepts, okay? We can see some different examples, okay? Let's take this first example, okay? We have the budget income that the club has provided to us, plus the adjustments, okay? Then we have the structural costs, and then we have, when we say here the payments, we don't talk about all the payments, all the debt payments. We talk about very structural debt payments. Let's say that you are in a CBA agreement. So if you're in a CBA agreement, we're going to take out these payments. But if you have debt with suppliers, even with banks, we're not going to take out these amounts because we are checking out the treasury statement, okay? So, like we said before, we had the budget income, and then we take out both the debt payments related to CBA and the all structural expenses, okay? So you have like some surplus, okay? Which is the squad cost limit, okay? And now we go and ask the club, okay, so give me your actual squad. Give me your actual squad cost, okay? So it's the amount that you see in red, okay? So as you see, the red square is more little than the yellow square, okay? So you're gonna have room and you're gonna be able to hire players, okay? This is like a normal situation. Let's go to another situation, okay? We start from the same point, the budget income less the payments and the structural expenses. We take out these amounts and we got a yellow square, which is the squad cost limit. And we tell the club, okay guys, provide to me the squad cost that you are having right now, okay? And we see that the actual cost of the club is higher than the squad cost limit, okay? So you guys would tell me, okay, so this club cannot make any transfer, okay? Because it's in a excess situation, it's exceeded, right? So no, we are gonna let this club make some operations that we are gonna explain as of now, because the purpose of these regulations is not ban the clubs to make transfers, is to make the clubs have a squad cost related to its capacity. So we are gonna make the club to get some savings in order to invest in new players, okay? And finally, we can have an even more extreme situation where the squad cost limit is negative, which means that just with your structural expenses and debt payments, you are even over than the revenues that you have projected, okay? So you will have to go to the way that I said before, okay? And we're gonna explain you later. Okay, so let's say that we made our calculations, okay? And we got like a starting squad cost limit, okay? How are the ways that you can improve this situation? So this picture is not fixed during the season. In June 30, you get a squad cost limit, and then the club can make some operations in order to improve the situation and get more capacity in order to hire new players, okay? So first of all, there's an article in the Standards of Budgeting, the actual number is 92, that provides the club a way in order to gain advanced capacity, okay? Let's say that you're a club and you're in the summer window, okay? We are approaching to the end of the market, and you come to La Liga and you say, hey Angel, so as of now, I'm in break even, I don't have capacity to hire new players, but hey man, I'm gonna close a commercial agreement 100% sure, but I don't have the actual paper signed, okay? Please give me a way in order to hire this new player, because I'm 100% sure that I'm gonna close this agreement, okay? So we tell the club, okay, with a maximum of the 6% of your net revenue, I'm gonna give you this capacity to you to hire this new player with two conditions. The first one is you have to make a deposit in La Liga with this amount, okay? And then you have the whole season to bring me this new contract, okay? If during the whole season you bring me this contract, it's audited, I'm gonna give you back the money, okay? If during the whole season you lie to me and you don't bring me this contract, I'm gonna take the amount and deposit the amount to the club, okay? But this is like a way in order to avoid timing issues, okay? Then, let's say, for example, that we are talking about a club that competes in Europe, okay? And in the budget, they told us a revenue estimating that they were gonna get until the quarterfinals of Champions League, okay? And then the season starts going on and they got not to the quarterfinals, to the semifinals. So this will mean an increase of revenue, and we will take this into account, okay? Obviously, if they get more revenue increases, we will consider them as well, okay? And the final one is capital contributions, okay? So we are not delighted on capital contributions, but they are not obviously totally avoided, okay? So let's say that a club wants to put some money, increase the capital of the club, and they want to use this money in order to hire new players, okay? So they cannot hire players for the 100% of the capital that they have put in the club, okay? What we are gonna do is, okay, depending on some financial criteria, we're gonna classify the club in Group A, Group B, Group C, or Group D, okay? If, for example, the club is classified in Group A, we are gonna let the club use this money, but during 2 years, okay? Not just in 1 year. They have to use the money in 2 years. If the club is classified, for example, in Group C, so we are gonna apply a 30% haircut, and the rest, the 70%, they're gonna be able to use it in 2 years, okay? In order to hire new players. And obviously, always with a maximum of the 25% of the net revenue. Let's say that there's a club that has 100 millions of revenue, and they call us and tell to us, hey, I want to increase the capital with 50 millions. We're gonna tell him that they are not gonna be able to use the 50 millions. They are just gonna be able to use the 25 millions, okay? The 25% of the net revenue. Okay, so as I said before, all of these controls that we are doing are possible because we have the capacity to not register some players if the clubs are not in compliance with the regulations, okay? So here you can see like the application that we call manager, where we control all the data of the different clubs, okay? We've been talking during the whole presentation about the squad cost, okay? So what concepts are behind the squad cost, okay? So first of all, fixed salary. Obviously, if you hire a player and you're gonna pay him 1 million per season, so this is gonna be within the squad cost, okay? Always take in account that we are talking about gross amounts. The tax implications are considered, okay? Then, variable salary. As I said before, we're going to apply the percentage that was calculated last season. We're going to apply it automatically to the next season, okay? Then, image rights. Other retributions. For example, house assistant, renewal premium. Different kind of other retributions are included in the squad cost, okay? Here we have to say that there are some important assumptions, okay? So let's say that a player has a variable amount related to the percentage of games that he's gonna play next season, okay? Let's say that the contract says that if the player plays the 60% of the games of next season, he's gonna get 1 more million, okay? So we have like a standard estimate in our department that says, hey, if within the contract says that the player is gonna get the amount if he plays less than the 50% of the games, we are gonna consider it fixed, because we estimate that at least every player is going to play the 50% of the games, okay? If the condition is over the 50% of the games, we are not going to consider the salary, okay? Then also social security charges, acquisition costs, if there are agent costs behind, they are included as well in the squad cost. And also the depreciation. Let's say that I have hired a player and I paid an amount as a transfer, So I'm gonna depreciate this amount along the life of the player, okay? And then finally, loans, income, expenses. So here is the situation that I was talking before. Let's say that a club that we have calculated a squad cost limit has a squad cost amount higher than the squad cost limit, okay? So in theory, this club wouldn't be able to hire new players, okay? But since we want the club to adapt its squad cost to its actual revenues, we are not going to avoid the club to hire new players. What are we gonna do? Okay, so we're gonna tell the club, in order to hire new players, you're gonna have to make savings. Okay, so let's say that I have an actual squad cost of 10 million. Okay, and the club comes to me and says, "Hey, Angel, I'm gonna transfer this player of my squad. This is gonna make me a profit of 2 million in the transfer, and I'm gonna afford another 2 million regarding his salary." Okay, so we have 4 million of savings. Okay, so what we are gonna do is, okay, the 20% of the 2 millions that you got from the transfer, you're gonna be able to spend it in new players, and the 60% of the 2 millions of savings that you got from his salary, you're going to be able to spend it in new players. Okay? So this for general players. Let's say that this player that the club has transferred represents more than the 5% of the total squad cost. So the percentages increased in 70% and 35%. So as you can see, if we are letting the club make new operations, but the quantity that is going out is higher than the quantity that is getting in, we are making sustainable this club, okay? And on the long term, this club will be on break even. And well, finally, regarding this ex-ante control, let you know that there's a particular regulation, the Article 41.3, that avoids the clubs to make differences between the amounts that the players are making each year higher than 25%. Okay, so you cannot bring a contract, a 4-year contract that says that in the first season the player is going to make, let's say, 1 million, and then the second season the player is going to make 5 million, and then the third season the player is going to make 15 million. Okay, this is banned. Why? Because some clubs try to register the player because we just control 1 year. So since the first year the player had a cost of 1 million, okay, now the player is registered, but then you have the problem in the future years. Okay, let you know that now we are controlling normally 2 or 3 years, but this cannot be done. Okay, so maximum the difference of the salary per year, it has to be the 25%. Okay, and finally in the second division, let you know that all the players that are hired have to be evaluated. Okay, why? Because we faced a problem in La Liga that there were some clubs. So you know that as of now there are some we could say it, some organizations that are composed by more than one club. We can talk about, for example, City Group. Okay, City Group is the Manchester City, then it has the Girona in Spain, it has a team in New York, whatever. Okay, so I'm not talking about this situation particularly, but it was just as an example. Okay, so what happened? There were some clubs that they were lending some players to some clubs in La Liga very cheap. Okay, so these clubs were having some benefits because of being member of this kind of organization, right? So this is not a fair value transaction, okay? So because of that, all the players that are coming in the second division, they have to be valued. And also, back in the past, we were having some situations that, let's call a player that had a very good career and he was making a decent amount of money in England, okay? And then he came back to Spain in order to spend the final years, okay? So this player went from making, let's say, 2 million per year to making 100K per year, okay? So this is at least weird, okay? So this cannot be done, okay? So this player will be valued, and here I don't want you to get very deep on that, but here basically we consider how many games the players have played in the last 2 seasons, what was the salary that they were making in the last 2 seasons, and according to this information, we calculate like a valuation, okay? So let's say if this player that is coming to the second division, the club calls us and tells us, okay, Ángel, so this guy is gonna make 200K, and the valuation says that he has to make 1 million, regardless the amount that it's stated in the contract, we are gonna compute 2 million, okay? Okay, and the final part of the presentation, it talks about the ex post analysis, okay? Okay, so as we said before, this is related to closed audited information, okay? This is not about the future, this is about the past, okay? So we are kind of transposing the UEFA regulations here to Spain with some differences, but the vast majority of our regulation is related to UEFA, okay? So it's applicable to all professional clubs, both in the first and the second division. We have two steps. The first phase, which takes place in November, and we check out the last 3 audited seasons, and then the second part, which takes place in March, April, and we ask the club to provide to us the interim financial statements, okay? The 6 months financial statements that go from July to 31st of December, okay? And we also check out some kind of indicators, okay? And also let you know that if the clubs are not in compliance with all of these regulations, so in our statutes or art of regulations, we have some sanctions that we are going to impose to them, okay? They can go from 600 euros, the lowest one, to up to 300K, okay? And that's all, guys. Thank you very much for your time, and if you have any questions, so I will be happy to respond.